You first have to endure it, which means you have to endure the pain, the sorrow, the hardship, whatever that looks like. You have to endure it. There's no way around that. And then the second step is the hope and positivity stage, which is believing that you can overcome whatever it is that besets you. And then the third stage is what I call the Prevail stage, which is, okay, now you've overcome, you've climbed the mountain, you've overcome the hardship, and now what are you going to do to help others get through their hardship and their adversity?
This is By Joyan Season 2. I'm your host, Joyan Chan, and every Wednesday we bring you inspiring stories, powerful message, and fun conversations with me and my special guests and friends, and it's my personal mission to empower you to live and lead a life with joy. This podcast is for you if you're looking for more joy, courage, passion, and purpose in your life. Now let's dive into today's episode and get ready to laugh, learn, and live your life to the fullest. Our guest today is a remarkable entrepreneur, inspirational leader, and living testament to the power of hope and resilience. He is the founder and CEO of Paragon Steel, a highly successful Southern California steel company that has remained strong, profitable, and adaptable through nearly 3 decades of economic shifts and industry change. But his story extends far beyond business. He's also a rare triple transplant recipient who has courageously navigated the challenges of type 1 diabetes, endured an incredibly complex and high risk medical journey, and balanced it all while leading a thriving company and caring for his family. So, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcoming the true warrior and the author of When Hope Is Your Only Option, the one and only Jim Stavis. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joy. It's nice to be here. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you on the show, and I love our pre-chat. I feel like we are now friends, and if you come to Singapore this year, let me know. We can meet for coffee or maybe record another podcast together in person. That will be fun.
Sounds good. I would love take advantage of that invitation.
Yeah. So I would like to start with your backstory. Can you take us back to the moment when you were 17 years old and when you first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes? How did that shape the course of your life?
Yes. Yeah, the story began when I was a teenager at 17, and I had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which at the time was not as prevalent as it is today. Today, there's probably 5 times more diabetics in the world than there were back in the 1970s. So at the time, they told me that I'd be lucky to live to the age of 50. I'd have things such as heart disease, kidney disease, amputations, blindness, a host of things. And plus, I'd be on insulin for the rest of my life, taking shots. And it was a pretty bleak forecast for a 17-year-old to absorb. But I made a choice, and that choice was I wasn't going to let that disease define my life. And so I used it as a motivator to kind of get my act together, knowing that I had a shorter lifespan. And ultimately, my life went well. I started a business right out of high school, and I went to college, and I met my wife. We got married, raised a family, all the while knowing that my lifespan was potentially to be shortened. And then as I ultimately hit my 40s, I started having some of the effects that the diabetes itself was having on my body. I had my first cardiac event when I was 43 years old up in the mountains here in Southern California. It's a pretty dramatic story, actually. I was up 20 feet in the air and my heart stopped on a ropes course up in Lake Arrowhead, California. So that's where I start my book, was at that spot. So heart problem, which ultimately led to a kidney problem, which I had in my later 40s. And then as I was approaching 50, I had congestive heart disease, which meant that I had to go to kidney dialysis 3 times a week for a year. And I was kind of hanging by a thread, to be quite honest with you. And so I went to the Cedar Sinai Hospital here in LA, and the head cardiologist said, well, you need a new heart, you need a new kidney, and best case, a new pancreas to get rid of your diabetes. But unfortunately, we've never done such a surgery like that, and I don't think it's been done anywhere in the world. And I looked him in the eye and I said, well, I'll be the first. And he didn't really know how to react to that. In fact, he talked to me later and said that in medical school, they prepare you for how to give kind of life or death diagnosis to patients. And he had never had a patient kind of throw it back into his court and say, well, I'll be the first. And so he said, well, if you're game, I'm game. So we did it. And in 2005, I got a heart and kidney from a single donor. And then in 2006, I got a pancreas from another donor. So I had a triple organ transplant, and fortunately, everything is still working fine. And I'm now 70, so I'm 20 years past all of this that occurred. And so I kind of owe my life to medical technology because, when I was that 17-year-old boy, had no idea how he was going to be saved all those years later. I could have never foreseen that transplant was going to be my ticket to survival. But it was a blessing. I mean, I've used this story to kind of help other people get through their adversity. I mean, I kind of have dedicated my life to sharing the story, writing a book about it, and kind of creating a bit of a lesson plan for how do you get through adversity. We're all going to face it eventually. We may not face it like I did at such an early age, but through life, we're challenged in many ways. And the point being is, how do we overcome those challenges? How do we get through the adversity? And that's kind of what I try and provide in my book.
Thanks for sharing. You are truly a living miracle, I must say. And I know your book and your story is all about resilience, right? Hope and positivity. But I'm just curious, like, was there a moment throughout the journey while waiting for the right person to right donor, right? Waiting for the
Right.
right time, the opportunity. Was there a moment that you felt, this is you felt hopeless, like it's not
Was
good,
there doubt? Was there doubt? Is what you're asking me?
right? Without, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would be lying if I told you that negative thoughts never entered my mind.
Right.
However, I managed to keep the positive thoughts front and center, and so I kind of learned how to prioritize what was more important. And so, anytime there was a doubt of any sort, I tried to just shield myself from it. For example, when I was at the doctor's office, the doctor said, "Oh, I have a transplant recipient in the office down the hall. Would you like to meet him?" And I thought, I'm not sure if I want to because I don't know what he's going to look like. I don't know what his situation is. So I said, I think I'll pass just because I don't want to create any negatives in my mind. So I really tried to be so positive about it that when I was going through it, I would tell people, yeah, I'm going in for a triple organ transplant as if I was going to have a root canal. I mean, I really did minimize the severity of it. And I think that had a lot to do with my success was the fact that I didn't allow any negative thoughts to enter my mind.
I like that. It's a smart it's a strategy, right, to deal
Right,
with it. So
right.
in the documentary Source of Hope, I watched a bit of the the videos and clips. You shared that your donor was a 17-year-old who passed away in a tragic
Yes.
accident. how do you hold space for that family who experienced such a profound loss of their son
Yeah.
while yours were given the gift of life?
Yes. Well, that's what the story is about. I did the documentary before I wrote the book, and the documentary was about my story of survival and unfortunately his tragic story, which affected a family, a community, and I was trying to draw the difference between the two. And so I had it's rare actually for the recipient and the donor family to meet. I was fortunate enough that they reached out to me, and we've had a pretty nice relationship ever since. This is going on 11 years now. So whenever we meet, the donor mother puts her head on my chest and listens to her son's heart beating in my chest, which is very kind of cool in a way. Um, so for her and for her family, I represent, they believe that their son is working through me, and that part of the good that I do is because their son is at work. And so, and there's a lot of elements of spirituality that come into it. She's a very faithful to her God type person, and she believes that this was all kind of meant to be. And I think her faith has pulled her through what would otherwise be a, kind of a difficult event for her, for all of them, their entire family. It's a good story. I mean, and that's what the Source of Hope talks about, is that, by, in a way, my living is Bryce was his name. He lives on through me.
Yeah. But since that is the case, do you ever feel a sense of responsibility now that you're carrying his heart?
Yeah.
A sense of responsibility toward the family, toward his story. Um, how is carrying else's heart inside you? I don't know, like shape your understanding of identity because it's not you anymore when you listen to your heart.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because that's a chapter in my book, is what does the heart represent? We've through the years, we have actually assigned a meaning to. We listen to our heart. We love with our heart. It's the center of emotion. And so what happens when you cut out your heart and you put somebody else's heart in? Does that mean that you stop loving the people that you loved before, or that your cravings are different, your desires are different? Well, no. And the reality to me is that the heart is a muscle that pumps blood throughout your body. And I don't necessarily believe that it's the center of your being, but that's kind of a belief that we've had almost going back to beginning of time. I mean, in the Bible, there's 800 references to your heart. And so that's through literature, through song, we kind of have created this belief that the heart is kind of the center of ourselves, of our being, you know.
Yeah,
So it's interesting.
yeah, it is very interesting, and to hear that that's not the case is a relief. I would say, right? That you still feel you still love the way that you used to love, and you still have your own intuition and all that. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Now, while you were navigating all these medical challenges, and you were still building your business, right? So you see, many
yeah,
entrepreneurs or many business owners or even CEO, they struggle to balance business and personal life,
right.
even without a major life crisis or health crisis like you had. So how were you able to build Paragon Steel while simultaneously managing a serious medical challenge?
It's a great question. I was fortunate that I started the company with a partner, and the partner who I became very close with is almost like a brother to me. We started the business in 1988, and I started having my health problems kind of in the late 90s. So we had been in business for like 12 years or so when I started having health challenges. So fortunately, I had a partner who was able to kind of run the business while I had the problem. And then after all of my transplants and whatnot, he then had health challenges. So then I had to take over the business. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2014. So that was fully 10 years after my transplants. But he had a kind of an infection that ravaged his body, and it took 2 years before he passed. And I learned a lot. I learned as much in his demise, I learned from my success, because I realized that the difference was the way we approached adversity. In a way, he didn't really rise to the challenge. He kind of believed he was a religious person, and he believed that God was going to take care of him in life or in death. And so, in a way, he kind of just accepted his fate. And in my case, I viewed that I'm in control of this, and I'm going to see every doctor and go to every hospital, and until I find the way through it. And so for me, it was an interesting kind of parallel situation, but we had different outcomes. My mindset was much stronger than his, whereas he kind of succumbed to those upsets in his life. He wasn't able to overcome them.
So, how can people begin to shift their mindset so they can see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles?
You improve the odds if you are hopeful rather than hopeless. And a big part of my pitch is that if you look at life through a positive lens, you have a much better chance when adversity strikes to be able to rise above that adversity. But if you're a negative person and or like one of those people that feels like a victim, why, woe is me, that you're not really set up for success. And I think that, so when I speak to people, a lot of people say, well, my husband is a very negative person. How do I make him a positive person? And I say, you kind of do it step by step. You have to take, you have to look at your life through a lens, and, you know, let's say every day try and find some positives. When you wake up in the morning, the first thought, is your first thought negative or is it positive? And then when you start your day, are you thinking negative or are you thinking about, so the notion is that you have to start small, and then eventually over time you'll develop more of a positive view on life. So that's kind of my view. It doesn't happen overnight. In fact, for a lot of people, it's happened throughout their lifetime, so that by the time they're adults, they kind of view it themselves in a victim sort of way,
Yeah.
whereas I never have.
Again, was there a time when you had that thought like, why me? Oh God, why me? I'm a good person. Why me?
I never thought that way.
Wow.
I never thought, why me? I would always view, like, why not me? Like, for example, when the doctor said you need, heart, kidney, pancreas, and I said, okay, then I'm going to be the one, because I really believed that that was my destiny, that was my fate, and I had gone through a lifetime of diabetes and hardship, and that this was my opportunity to get above it. I mean, how how lucky was I that there was a solution to my problem, and that I was able to take advantage of that. That's a gift. I couldn't view it any other way.
Wow. Well, that's powerful, because again, like you said, right? So many people fall into the victim mentality, like, why me?
Right.
Right? I mean, and for you, you don't even have that thought at all. That's wow, amazing.
I should be a psychologist, a therapist, I think, because I talk to a lot of people that don't, they don't think that way. But to me, it's just who I am.
I can see now, right? And you definitely can be a therapist, or just by you sharing your story, I think it heals so many people. It helps so many people, and which is why you are doing what you do
Right.
today. That's really generous of you and kind of you. How about support? The support that you receive, was there a particular person or mentor, or maybe your wife, your family member, or an experience that kind of helped you maintain a positive and persistent attitude throughout your journey? Like the person was just there all the time.
Well, my family was for sure, and my wife was certainly. I mean, as irony would have it, her father was in Auschwitz, a Holocaust survivor, and so she was raised, with parents that had gone through incredible hardship, and somehow, some way, they survived. So I think that as a result, her orientation was always that's whatever life deals you, you find a way to get over it. I mean, if anything, interestingly, she would ask me, "Why are you promoting what you've been through?" Because from her parents, they tended to sweep it under the rug. They didn't want to talk about the adversity that they had been through. And my answer to her was simple. I said, if I can help one other person to get through their adversity, then that means that what I went through was worth it. So, if I can help others, that makes it all. That's my motivation. That's my purpose.
Yeah.
In my book, I break down the adversity process like this. I say that you first have to endure it, which means you have to endure the pain, the sorrow, the hardship, whatever that looks like. You have to endure it. It's not. There's no way around that. And then the second step is the hope and positivity stage, which is believing that you can overcome whatever it is that besets you. And then the third stage is what I call the prevail stage, which is okay. Now you've climbed the mountain, you've overcome the hardship, and now what are you going to do to help others get through their hardship and their adversity? So that's kind of the way I view it, and so I'm in that third stage, and I will be for the rest of my life. How can I help others?
Yeah. So, for someone listening right now who may feel overwhelmed by their circumstances or has lost hope, what would you want them to hear now?
Well, again, I mean, the book talks a lot about that, and it's a way of framing whatever it is that you're going through and finding a way through it. So, and I'm not minimizing the severity of it. It's not easy. I mean, it's not like I'm not trying to minimize the fact that that endurance stage is no fun. Like there's a lot of times when if you're ill, or if, let's say, you lost your job or you're getting a divorce or whatever it may be, it may seem pretty bleak at the time and you may see no way through it. But if you try and just don't freak out and you don't get totally anxiety ridden, and you find that there is a way through, you just have to. One of the lines that I often use is, "How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time." That's kind of how it is how you get through hard times. You take it one step at a time.
Thank you so much for your generous sharing, and I felt so inspired by your story today. But is there anything that you really want to talk about? Perhaps I didn't ask you or didn't let you.
Well, the one takeaway that I always end my speeches with is that organ donation saves lives, and I would encourage anybody to be a donor, which you can register online wherever, in whatever state you live in, or there's Donate Life, which is a national organization, and so some people register and some people don't. I mean, the most people, if you ask them to be an organ donor, I think 80% say yes, and then probably only 50% actually do it. So I would encourage people to be organ donors because it saves lives, and I'm proof of that. So that would be my one takeaway. And then the other thing would be if I actually have a copy of my book here.
Right.
And When Hope is Your Only Option. And you can get, if you were to go on my website, whenhopeisyouronlyoption.com or jimstavis.com, you can actually order it. So that would be my I would request all of your listeners to tune into that.
For sure.
I'm coming out with an audio version of it as well, so that's going to happen as well.
Yeah, because for people who are listening to podcasts, I am sure they are a fan of audiobooks like myself. I like, to listen to audio when I'm traveling. Or
Right.
yeah, so guys, for everyone listening, you will find all the links and resources mentioned in the show note below. I put all Jim's link, including where to buy the book, on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all other major retailers in the show note below. So make sure you go and check it out. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss another episode coming to you every Wednesday. Thanks for listening, and I wish you all a joyful and amazing day ahead. Thank you again for tuning into 5 Joyan podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, take a screenshot and share it on your IG story and tag 5joyan_podcast so I know you are listening. And leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't already done so. And remember to hit the subscribe button whether you are listening on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, or any of your other favorite platforms. If you love what we are doing and want to become one of our sponsors, you can send me a DM to connect. And thanks for being here. I will see you soon in the next episode.